indeed treated to a special event today. I'm very pleased that a lot of you who signed up before remembered to reconfirm and to come again, because I think you're in for as I say, a very special event today. Our speaker today, whom you all know, I really don't even need to introduce him, but by way of background, just to let you know, Ambassador Sandy Vershbow has just completed 31 years of service to our nation. He's just retired from the Foreign Service. I, for one, thank him for that service. And I cannot go through his background and career because I would be up here for 20 minutes just talking about the highlights. But I do want to mention a few things that stand out and make his last several years in the Foreign Service and service to the United States, particularly noteworthy. I first, at least from across the way, saw and met Sandy at the National Security Council when he was Senior Director and Special Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs from 94 to 97. He went on from there to be our permanent representative ambassador to NATO for 3 years, and then a 4-year assignment as ambassador to the Russian Federation, and this is very significant. He was so well thought of and accomplished so much that he was brought across the world to work critical issues in Asia, and he has done that for the last 3 years as our ambassador in Korea at an extraordinarily sensitive and important time. And the only thing that I can say to top all of that is that he has a partner in this process, and we're very fortunate that Lisa Vershbow is with us. She's an extraordinarily talented woman, in addition to being his partner in this whole process. So Sandy, I'm not going to take any more time. I ask you to come up here and give us your reflections on your 3 years as ambassador in Seoul. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jack, for that very nice introduction. And it's a kind of daunting experience to be speaking for the first time in almost 32 years as a private citizen. So if I occasionally lapse into canned talking points, it's hard to break the habit. But I would start by saying that my 3 years as ambassador in Seoul were truly among the most fascinating years in my 31.5 years in the Foreign Service. And the assignment was entirely unexpected, because it was my first Asian assignment after having spent my entire career working on Russia and European security issues. Although it is worth remembering that you can see Russia from the Korean Peninsula. But I think my experience working on nuclear and defense issues, as well as my involvement in Europe's post-Cold War transformation, prepared me for at least some of the issues that confront the Korean Peninsula. And those may have been the reasons why Secretary of State Rice offered me the job. But at the same time, despite my crash course before I went out, no amount of study prior to arrival in Seoul in October 2005 could have fully prepared me for the dynamism of Korean society, for the incredible drive and creativity of the Korean people, and also for the volatility of Korean politics. I departed Seoul 3 years later with a much deeper appreciation for Korea and for the importance of the U.S.-Korea relationship. And in fact, I returned home convinced that Korea has been, if anything, undervalued as a U.S. ally and partner in recent years, if only because the Koreans can often be very difficult, even when they're trying to do the right thing. And indeed, the polarized and turbulent nature of Korean politics can often get in the way of the decisions that are needed to move the relationship forward. And they can sometimes make the role of the U.S. ambassador something of a high-wire act. But we usually, in fact, we always somehow find a way to get to those decisions. So like they say about the United States, after trying all the other alternatives. And I think it's the shared values and the common strategic interests between our countries, together with this very strong affinity that most Koreans have to the United States, that together make me very optimistic about the relationship's future potential. With new leaders in Washington and Seoul committed to a stronger bilateral partnership, we should be able to upgrade the U.S. ROK alliance and pave the way for Korea to become a more important global partner for the United States in the years ahead. A key step toward this end will be to bring the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement into effect as soon as possible in 2009. This can be done, in my view, with creativity, flexibility, and goodwill on both sides, and without requiring full-scale renegotiation of the agreement, and I'll explain that more later. But certainly losing the FTA would be damaging to the relationship, and also to U.S. standing and influence in Northeast Asia for years to come. And it would also deprive us of an important tool for assisting our own economic recovery. Now that's the executive summary. I still write like I'm producing a cable. Let me now offer some more detailed reflections on my time as ambassador, focusing on what were the three major substantive challenges that dominated the agenda: managing frictions over North Korea, modernizing the ROK-U.S. alliance, and upgrading the economic relationship. And I'll start with what was unquestionably the most difficult challenge, keeping the U.S. and approaches to North Korea in sync. Now, as everybody here knows very well, the Bush administration got off to a very rocky start with South Korea because of sharp differences with President Kim Dae-jung over his sunshine policy, and a conviction that the agreed framework of 1994 was fatally flawed. Those differences became, if anything, more pronounced when Roh Moo-hyun took over in 2003. His advocacy of more carrots and fewer sticks led to frequent disagreements between Seoul and Washington over strategy for the six-party talks, and major disconnects between those negotiations and the South's approach to inter-Korean relations. I arrived in Seoul midway through President No's term, just after the completion of the September 19, 2005 joint statements in the six-party talks. And that had given rise to euphoria in Seoul that the United States had abandoned its hard line towards Pyongyang and that the long-sought breakthrough in relations with the North was at hand. But within weeks of my arrival, tensions between Seoul and Washington flared again, and in this case it was over our decision to try to disrupt North Korean illicit financial activities by announcing measures against Banco Delta Asia, which prompted an angry reaction by the North and a boycott of further talks on denuclearization. President No and his team, who were understandably keen to build on the September 2005 joint statement with its comprehensive vision of a new peace structure for the peninsula and Northeast Asia, couldn't comprehend why the United States would put all of this at risk over the BDA case. And they weren't alone. This disagreement was the backdrop for what was probably the worst ever ROK-U.S. summit meeting in Gyeongju in November 2005, when Presidents No and Bush argued for more than an hour over the BDA case. And these frictions spilled over into the public debate, with even the conservative Korean media questioning U.S. tactics and casting doubts on the evidence of North Korean government engagement in counterfeiting, money laundering, narcotics trafficking, and other criminal activities. These tensions persisted into 2006, with the North Koreans doing all that they could to drive a wedge between Washington and Seoul. But North Korea's missile tests in July 2006 and the nuclear test in October injected a bit more realism into the No's administration approach, and one could say into the U.S. approach as well. With a little help from then National Security Advisor Song Min-soon, we were able to persuade President No that he needed a strategy with as many sticks as carrots if he wanted to be taken seriously in Washington. And this set the stage for what was actually one of the most positive Bush-Roh Moo-hyun summits in September 2006, when the so-called common and broad approach was endorsed. Even though President No's response to the nuclear test was less robust than we had hoped for, he did surprise